You're looking at a picture of Naziyah Harris, a now 14-year-old girl from Detroit. This picture was taken a short time before she would go missing, never to be seen or heard from again. It was taken by Naziyah herself, a selfie. This is the last known picture that we know about of her. She is smiling and waving and saying hello, but little did she know that she was really saying goodbye. Naziyah Harris has been missing since January 9th, when she was last seen getting off a school bus in the area of Cornwall and 3 Mile Drive. This case has been solved, well, kind of, meaning we know who did it, we know why this person did it, but why didn't anyone protect Naziyah? And why is she still missing? Was the family in on this? Hello, strangers. Welcome back to the Strange Bar and Grill. Today we have another missing persons case. This is the story of Naziyah Harris. Naziyah was born to her mother and father, Mervyn Jennings, in the city of Detroit. She and her brother lived with her grandmother, Annette Harris, early on. But that living arrangement would come to an end, and Naziyah would move in with her Aunt Shannon and her boyfriend. Not much is known about her parents, but it was reported that her mother was struggling with addiction, and her father wasn't able to care for her due to various medical reasons. Unfortunately, her father would pass away this year due to congestive heart failure, never finding out what happened to his daughter. Despite her unstable upbringing, Naziyah still found joy with her relationships with her cousins. She was motivated to do well in life. She would attend J.E. Clark Preparatory Academy on Detroit's east side. Despite her struggles, everything appeared to be going well for Naziyah. She would study hard and do well in school. She was rarely late, and she rarely missed a day of school. However, life at home was different. You see, her aunt's husband wasn't a typical man. He carried a long rap sheet of abuse from his past. He had multiple children with underage girls in the area. That man was Jarvis Butts, a known predator in the Detroit area. Despite the clear warning signs and the fact that Jarvis was recently released from prison for assaulting a child, nobody was able to convince Naziyah's Aunt Shannon about the danger she was putting her family in. She was just too damn lonely. And just 4 months into the school year, something awful would happen that would send shockwaves through Detroit when Naziyah would disappear just moments after getting off the bus, never to be seen or heard from again. Not from her family, not from her schoolmates, not from her friends, and not from social media where she was extremely active with her friends, not from teachers, not from no one. On January 9th, Naziyah had a typical day. She would wake up, get ready for school, and rush out the door to get to the bus stop. She would be picked up by the bus and ride that bus to school like any normal day. Throughout the school day, she would send text messages out from a tablet provided by DPS. When the school day ended, Naziyah would leave the school and board the bus. Surveillance footage showed Naziyah on the bus at around 2:50 p.m. The bus would eventually pull up to her normal stop at Cornwall Street and 3 Mile Drive. Naziyah would exit the bus, but she wouldn't head home. Instead, something bad would happen to Naziyah. Her Aunt Shannon noticed she didn't return from school. She didn't immediately report her missing though, because she frequently would come home late. But the following day, when Naziyah still didn't return home, she grew even more concerned. Her Aunt Shannon, in a panic, would attempt to call Naziyah multiple times on her cell phone. She sent text messages, and those went unanswered. She knew something wasn't right, and she knew Naziyah was gone. Shannon would contact Naziyah's grandmother, Annette, to tell her what happened. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Annette would call the Detroit Public School Police and tell them that her granddaughter never came home from school and is missing. After her grandmother contacted the Detroit Public School Police, they didn't immediately spring into action. They waited a month before turning the case over to the Detroit PD. Detroit police then contacted federal law enforcement, including the U.S. Marshals, for assistance with the case. The different agencies worked together in an attempt to locate Naziyah. The community also came together to spread awareness. They put up posters, shared social media posts. Everybody was truly wanting for Naziyah to be brought home. Police would search ponds, abandoned buildings, and wooded areas in hopes to find some sort of clue about Naziyah's whereabouts. However, their efforts would unfortunately lead to a dead end at that time. But Detroit police wouldn't give up. The department's Major Crimes Division continued their search and would discover a piece of Naziyah's clothing near the Rouge River around 7 Mile and Berg. The piece of clothing was damaged, indicating there may have been a struggle. Police would continue to urge the public to come forward with any clues that they may have. But Naziyah's family already had a suspect in mind, someone they warned about for years, someone who just kept slipping through the cracks. In March of 2024, Jarvis Butts, Aunt Shannon's boyfriend, was arrested by the Detroit police after a young girl came forward with accusations of an offense dating back to 2014. She would go on to accuse Jarvis of multiple accounts of assault over the course of an entire year. But she wasn't his only victim. You see, Jarvis had a history of dating lonely women with young daughters because that's what he really wanted. He didn't want the mother. He would just date them to get close to their daughters. Police would question Jarvis extensively about his latest crime. During their interrogations, they would discover that he was Naziyah's aunt's boyfriend and that they stayed in the same home together. They immediately knew they found the missing piece to the Naziyah case. Jarvis's rap sheet was well known among the community. He was known as the neighborhood predator. Naziyah's family knew this and tried to warn Shannon on several occasions, but she just didn't want to hear it. Her and Jarvis had children together, and she just didn't believe it, or she just didn't want to believe that he would do anything to harm the children in her family. Matter of fact, Jarvis disclosed to Shannon that he did 10 years for assaulting a 13-year-old girl back in 2014 and is a registered sex offender, and he gave her the choice to either continue the relationship or not. And she chose him over the safety of the girls in her family. But let's talk about this aunt some more. What type of person is she? I commend anyone who's willing to take in another child and provide for them. But I question your motives when you allow a known predator around your child and seemingly put yourself first. While researching this case, I stumbled upon a TikTok video of Naziyah. In the background, just to the right of Naziyah, you can see chains in the refrigerator. Not the white freezer on the left, but the black refrigerator just to the right of Naziyah. At first, I was going to just let it go, because it's hard to see, and I didn't want to make any accusations. But I went to the aunt's Facebook page, and I seen this post. In this post, she claims refrigerators can have chains in them legally, as long as children have access to them at all times. So I'm not sure how a child has access to the fridge at all times if there's a lock and chain on it. I guess all the kids would have to have keys at this point, and if that's the case, what's the point of the chains? I just thought that was some real strange behavior, but I'll leave it at that. Actually, I won't, because the more I dig, the more disgusted I become. Because not only did Shannon know what was going on in her home, her sister knew as well, and they would both seemingly laugh when people would tell her she was living with an offender and that her children were in danger. At this point, throw the whole damn family away. They're sick. Let me know what you guys think about that one in the comment section. Around this time, Naziyah's family members grew frustrated with police because they were pointing the finger at Jarvis from the start, but the police were slow to move their feet. They knew 13-year-old Naziyah at the time had been living with the neighborhood predator, and in the past they tried calling CPS and police on multiple occasions when they heard stories about his inappropriate behavior 2 years ago at a sleepover. The children that were assaulted were questioned for hours upon hours by the adults in the situation until the children just finally got frustrated and decided to say that they made the whole thing up, even when they didn't.
We suspected him from the beginning, considering his background and things like that we've heard about him.
Detroit podcaster Mark DeAndre.
Even in March, when I was doing the podcast, I felt like I had this thing pretty much solved as far as, what came out today. I said this months ago as far as what the end result was.
During the police's investigation, they discovered that Naziyah and Jarvis were texting throughout the day while she was at school. They decided to meet up after school that day. Using GPS data and witness statements and surveillance footage, this is what police believe happened that day. Naziyah got up for the morning, she got dressed, she got ready for school, and then she walked to the bus stop and took the bus to school. She had on clear framed glasses, a white sweater, and a black jacket over it, a colorful Rugrats puffy jacket with a fur-lined hood, with light blue jeans and Nike shoes. There's video of Naziyah getting on the school bus to confirm this. Naziyah used a DPS-issued tablet that she used to communicate and communicated with an app. She then took one last picture of herself on that tablet. Using that same tablet, she sent a message to a mobile device associated with Jarvis Butts, indicating that they would be meeting up after she got out of school that day. There's also video of her getting out of school at the end of the day in the same clothes. She meets up with Jarvis and a co-worker and goes back to their auto repair shop in Detroit. Naziyah is seen by Jarvis's sister at the shop. Jarvis, the co-worker, and Naziyah were together in the co-worker's car when they went to Ypsilanti and then returned to the shop on Connor. Well, what happened when Jarvis and the co-worker and Naziyah went to Ypsilanti? Is the co-worker also assaulting Naziyah? Jarvis's phone places him at all of these locations. At 9:30 p.m. to 12:20 p.m., Jarvis Butts checked into a motel. There's a receipt confirming this as well as his phone placing him at that location. Naziyah is never seen again after January 9th, 2024. Now, thanks to a tip, police would find articles of Zaniyah's clothing near the Rouge River around 7 Mile and Berg. GPS data showed that Jarvis visited that same area on January 10th, the day after Naziyah went missing. Jarvis started sending Naziyah sexually explicit texts in September of 2022. In September of 2023, she sent Jarvis a text saying she had not had her period. And by November of 2023, Jarvis was aware that Naziyah was pregnant. Phone records also show that Jarvis had been searching for abortion and abortion pills and drinking red antifreeze online before Naziyah's death. It's believed that Jarvis killed Naziyah because she was pregnant and wasn't able to get an abortion. But what do you all think? Do you think that Naziyah met her fate in that motel room? I think Jarvis killed Naziyah in that motel room, and then the next day he disposed of her body at that river. On Thursday, September 26th, 2024, almost 9 months later, Jarvis Butts was arrested in connection with the death and disappearance of Naziyah Harris. He was charged with first-degree premeditated murder, 1 count of criminal sexual conduct in the second degree, and 1 count of CP material. He is also being charged for 2 separate cases of SA of 2 more young girls. Given all this evidence, Jarvis still hasn't confessed to the crime. The evidence shows that Naziyah is in fact deceased, but her body is still missing because Jarvis refuses to disclose what he did with Naziyah's body. But he is going to prison, and inmates hate child predators. Maybe he can sit on Big Bubba's lap and they can talk about the first thing that pops up.